I'm working tirelessly every day to disrupt generational poverty. Don't steal it. I've already trademarked it.
Jasper Smith, tell me a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so by training, I am a financial planner, advisor, so I'm fully licensed on the insurance and investment side of the house. Love having conversations with people about money, like all things money. And so I found myself with this kind of issue of like, I love the industry, but I also love the community. And somehow, some way, I figured out how to merge the two. So I have a relationship with a large financial institution where I do my financial planning business through, but I also have my own business, the Build Wealth Movement, and that's probably where the love really sits of like, oh, this is my baby. And I love just, again, helping to kind of change the way people kind of think about money and then kind of unpacking those emotions in terms of how they feel, and then realizing that once people can really change the way they think and feel, a lot of great things can happen financially. Money's still a taboo subject. That alone scares a lot of people from having a conversation with me. So one of the things I pride myself on is being a really good listener. So if I was sitting down with you as a potential client, I'm just gonna ask some questions and listen. I mean, I always feel like I can help anybody, but I also realize that I might not be the financial person that they need. Although I may be able to offer the service or the solution, it still needs to be a good fit. And so what I'm learning with interacting with members of the community, members in corporate and small businesses, it's like they're just human.
Yeah.
They have the same kind of basic needs. Like they want to have some fun. They want to make a few dollars. They want to take care of their family. But they don't know how to, you can't do it all. Like you're not going to know it all. It's okay to ask for help, but a lot of people have been kind of programmed to feel like I've got to take on the world by myself. Wrong. The wealthiest people I know, and some of my best clients, have always talked about, I got to have a team around me of people who can help me with things that I'm not, good with, areas that I may be, struggling with. They're the expert. I need to work with experts, because if I surround myself with a team of experts, I don't have to waste time trying to become the expert. And so I've kind of looked at that as that's the blueprint. Do what wealthy families do. It seems to be working. Like wealth is hard to get rid of. Rich can come and go. You can be rich today, poor tomorrow. But wealth was and always will be by design. Like you don't just luck up and get wealthy, like it's built. There was a plan, and wealth is definitely more sustainable. So one of the taglines that I have for the Build Wealth Movement is, I'm working tirelessly every day to disrupt generational poverty. Don't steal it. I've already trademarked it. Disrupt generational poverty. So you hear a lot about financial literacy, financial wellness, financial health, and everybody talks about generational wealth and legacy. But I was like, people still have this impoverished mindset despite earning a couple $100,000 a year. And so I live in Oakland, California. I'm near Silicon Valley. I have a lot of tech clients, and they make great money. But financially, in terms of their level of education around what to do with said earnings, they might as well be in elementary school. And I'm generalizing. It's not everybody, but I tend to still find a lot of people who they're just uncomfortable talking about it.
It's quite interesting because you wouldn't really associate or at least differentiate and have the ability to discern wealth from riches. And I think you're clearly drawing the line there for me. However, let's go back to the emotional piece that you talked about, right? The emotion necessarily doesn't have to be negative, is what you're saying.
Agreed.
As it relates to money, but most people associate money comes like from fear, losing your home, your job. Like that is the emotional attachment that most people are familiar with. So talk a little bit about the two pieces that you're.
No, you're right on, and that's what I have to disrupt. It's so ingrained in you that we're always struggling. No, you got a roof over your head, a car, like you pay them. You can pay your bills on time. There's always food in your fridge, but somewhere in your mind, you still remember how you grew up, wherever that might have been. And so it's like, how do you get people out of that? And so honestly, some of my sessions are just financial therapy sessions, and that's a whole nother subject area. There are experts who do financial therapy, but I literally sit down and say, tell me what happened. Tell me how long has this been an issue? Like, and just let people talk. Some people just haven't unpacked some of those financial fears, all the financial trauma, the anxiety. That's what's stopping a lot of people just from being financially successful, is because they haven't unpacked the emotions. So every time you overspend, you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna be broke tomorrow, despite you may be earning 6 figures. But in your mind, you just overspent, and now you've triggered something that says, oh my gosh, I can't afford. No, you're fine. And so you'll still see a lot of people who earn a decent living, they still have a lot of struggles with money. And I'm talking just the basics of managing the day-to-day. Forget investments and insurance and real estate, just the basics of the budget, managing their credit effectively, or understanding the rules of credit. There's so many basic fundamentals that a lot of people have missed. And so I pride myself on trying to educate people on all those things, because if you look at a house, it always starts with the foundation. You don't start on the second floor, the roof. You got to build the foundation first. And what I've learned just in my experience is that a lot of people were not taught the basics. They have skipped some steps. And so at some point, while it might have been sustainable for a good period of their life, it takes like one event to just for all that to crumble.
To collapse completely. Ooh, that's a scary picture you drew right there, Jasper. Because it is the most fear that not only individuals face, but also entities and small businesses.
Yes.
Especially business owners, small business owners. This channel is seriously dedicated to small business owners. So if you do come in contact with small business owners, most of them don't even, I don't want to say most of them, but the people that I get in contact with are not really planning as it relates to investments, as it relates to even their future retirement, right? It's like, all right, the balance of how much do I put back into my business and how much do I put for myself in the future, I don't think the line is even there.
It's not. It's not. I literally have done some consulting for small businesses. I myself have gone through that same process of like, it's all about the business, and I'm just forgetting that I have regular bills, I have a family. Like, it's just, you're almost like blinded. Just, it's the business and all about the business. But yes, I do need to think about different insurances and different legal protective measures and retirement and investing and just an emergency fund. And so I found that in my interactions with business owners, they kind of forget that they have a personal financial situation. And so it's hard for them to kind of see that, as separate as the entities are, like it's your business and you, they're kind of intermingled. And so it's like, how do you get them to constantly see or remind them that there's the business side of like financial planning, and then there's the personal side. I think there are elements in the personal side that can definitely help you with the business, and probably vice versa. But it's just that level of understanding of like, it's important, and you need to like know, like, here is why somebody's gonna always ask you as a business, let me see your P&L. Like, cause it tells a story. It does. Story might not be a great story, but at least you gotta produce some numbers if you even wanna think about getting funding. I won't say everybody. A lot of business owners aren't fortunate enough to have somebody who would just give them money based on a handshake, based on their last name. There are plenty of businesses that get those, but not the majority. So, for folks of certain communities, Black and brown specifically, maybe women business owners, like, we can't just say, hey, Unc, would love $250,000 so I can launch this business. Like, that's wealth. Like, wealth can do that. Wealth has those types of accounts and the assets to be able to support the future generations. But if you don't have that luxury from a funding mechanism, you're gonna need some documentation.
For sure.
I need to see a story on paper about, should I invest in you? Do you understand what you just shown me right here? Yeah. And so sometimes it's just telling the story. Even if your numbers aren't great, do you even have enough passion, and can you speak with enough conviction about why you should receive this money?
Yeah, the communication.
Just tell a good story. That might get you the check.
That's so true. The guy that I had right before you was Theodore Watson's son, Kalen,
Yeah.
right? And he is a communication major, so he's really like preaching about communication. That's kind of sinking into me. It's like, well, even for my day-to-day job, being able to effectively communicate a small business's story and why they should get funding is how most of the deals go down.
Yeah.
But let's stay on the financial services side. It's exciting to be in this position, I would imagine, for you as well, because there is a lot of opportunity, but also you're constantly faced with challenges, right?
All the time.
Here in the Midwest, right? It's a little different from the West Coast, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Some people say, God's land is here, but I don't want you to put it in comparison, but like, draw a picture for me and what's happening in the Silicon Valley area as it relates to trying to break the barriers that you're facing as a small business owner, but also as a financial services expert.
Yeah, so definitely it's a different world, and it's probably because it's been such a tech-heavy space that you have an idea, you may be able to get funding just on an idea, so no real substance. And you've seen some success come from that. There have been some unicorns that have popped up, and you're like, what was their story? Yeah. They knew enough people who had the money, and that person believed in them. That's it. And so in other parts of the country, maybe the Midwest, I'm from the South originally, that's not normal. You're just going to give me an idea, and that's going to get you $1 million? But being in the Bay Area, I mean, you have a lot more of those opportunities because of the sheer numbers of people who had that type of money to invest. You know, the angels, the venture capitalists. I mean, they hang out in that area. And so you're able to run into more people who could be a potential funder. And so I think living there has just kind of opened my eyes up to, okay, if I am a small business, I don't necessarily need to go to the bank. I probably need to go through my network and ask who knows somebody that's connected to one of these investment firms. That could be an entree, right? Because a bank or a credit union, or your typical lender is going to ask for a lot of documents. You need to be tight-knit walking in.
For sure.
And it's all about risk mitigation. Whereas a VC is like, you know what, we're going to bet on like 20 of y'all, maybe 2 of y'all will make it. So they're a little more free with their money because they like your story and they believe in you and they've seen your track record. They're like, despite him not having it all together, like I like his energy. And you've heard some of these investment experts like, yeah, I'll take a bet. And they do. And so I think in other parts of the country, you might not be able to run into those caliber of people who have those sizable assets to be willing to say, you know what, I can cut you $150,000 right now. Just, I like the idea, no proof of concept. And you're like, what? Yeah. So it's unfortunately, the downside to that is people think it's really easy. So you get probably a lot more people, let's say, shooting their shot. But you're not even close. This business is going to fail till I'm not giving you my money. But people feel more compelled to at least try because of what they've seen in terms of these, I'll say, few success stories. Most small businesses don't make it out of a year, 2, or even 3. 3 years is a stretch for a small business. And so in other parts of the country, you know, yes, may not have access to those funding mechanisms, but I think you are maybe a little bit more realistic and or safer in how you pitch. I think that's a big difference. So even myself as an advisor on the consumer side, like meeting a tech person is like, okay, they get money fast. They may have something that, you know, maybe they go IPO and in a couple, like you're already thinking they could come into some serious dollars
shortly
tomorrow. Yeah. There's not this slow ramp up. There's almost like the hockey stick where you're like, I mean, they could be in a whole nother stratosphere. So how do I service somebody who didn't have much and now is just thrown into this world of now you're worth a couple million at the first valuation? Don't have a little bit of success and now your valuations keep getting lifted. So now they start to kind of feel that. And so for some, they're able to kind of channel that energy and their businesses continue to persist and be successful, while others kind of take the money and then, the business falters.
Yeah, and it's not guaranteed that they will be successful as well, even though they've acquired that seed funding, regardless of how they got the funding from. But it is interesting that you bring this up because it really shows the availability of opportunity. And I think that's a very key subject, in my opinion, right? So you might find, a small business that has the work ethic, the drive, even the knowledge and experience to be able to take a business from A to C or A to Z, but you are faced with a lot of challenges, and you're put in a position where you're not getting the access that you need as far as funding is concerned to be able to scale, right?
Yep.
A lot of businesses fail like that, right?
Yeah.
They die on the vine, right? But let's talk about opportunity in the financial services industry. Is there a lack of opportunity for minority groups per se, regardless of individual or small businesses, as far as you're concerned?
I would say yes. I would say they may be somewhat limited, partly because there's still this stigma that people of a certain color can't do financial services. And I'll never forget an experience. There was a gentleman, he was working on a fintech firm, but his investor group, so whoever went out to do pitches were Caucasian males. Like he had to put on he couldn't tell the funders that he was the CEO and the founder. And I was like, wow. I mean, I guess you're not necessarily lying. Like they're a part of the team, but you would have other people go pitch when it was your baby. So you're now having to coach somebody to tell your story versus you being able to go into the room and tell the story of your baby. And I used to hear those stories, and I would say, that's unfortunate that we can't even just walk into the room because we may be judged and we have said nothing. So I think we may be limited in those regards where sometimes the book is judged by its cover. I think that's unfortunate, but I think there are a lot of talented people who probably have incredible ideas that, for whatever reason, might not ever see the light of day, or they may stay at their current firm or go take a job and be more of an entrepreneur, and then now that company has that intellectual property, so now it becomes their new thing, but it was your idea. But some people are okay with that, and I think as an entrepreneur or a business owner, you have to be able to decide, like, how do you want to move? Some companies, and I've heard founders say this, I don't want to run a company that's going to be around for 100 years. I'm trying to run it up and sell out and go do something else. And they love like the going through the process of launching multiple businesses. So I think people have to think about, like, if there are limited opportunities in certain sectors or certain spaces, well, figure out how you want to play in that space. Mm-hmm. So do I need my own financial firm? No, not necessarily. I like having my coaching, my consulting business, because it allows me to do business the way I like to do it. But I still have relationships with large financial institutions. Mm-hmm. Do I need my own insurance company? Nope. There's plenty of carriers that do the job. Do I need my own bank? Nope. Plenty of banks I could partner with or collaborate with. So I think part of it too is figuring out, like, what do you have capacity for? So I think starting out in my career, I used to want to run everything. And then the older I got, I realized if I could just do what I love to do and have other people doing other stuff for me, and I'm still making money, that's the idea. That's the ultimate. Mm-hmm. So even in financial planning, like building a practice, whether it's insurance-based or investments, like that feeds me for a while. You sell it once if it's on the investment side, take good care of your clients, manage the assets. That's a paycheck for the rest of my life. Insurance, unfortunately, insurance solutions, primarily you're going to have to sell those over and over. But again, I'm still thinking about, like, well, if I sell it once good, then at least they'll like me and I did something good for somebody. On the investment side, again, as long as I keep those assets under my management, I'm getting paid every quarter. So thinking about, like, how much or how hard do I want to continue to work versus what am I really passionate about, and I probably can still earn a decent wage, even if I don't go 100% entrepreneur. So I had to start challenging a lot of people that I would talk to about, well, do I keep my job or do I go all entrepreneur? And I was like, you decide. It's your life. So I think if you need to keep a job and have a side hustle or what do they call them? I'm gonna forget the term. Everybody doesn't necessarily want to build a large company, a lifestyle business. So you want to build a business that's just big enough to where you're like, I got my life, I'm earning enough, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
That's gonna vary from person to person.
But I think that's the majority of people. Maybe there's a recent shift that's happening. Instead of just going all out entrepreneur, grinding, white knuckling a business and trying to really make it successful, it's like, where's that happy balance? Because I'm losing my mind here. A lot of small businesses are thinking that way these days.
And it made me think of this too. So I had another one of my mentors. Actually, I met him through the Urban Financial Services Coalition. He was at I forget, it was some event. It was a virtual event. And he was like, I want you to read this book. And I'm missing, I can't remember the name, but he was like, so many people are obsessed with like launching a business from scratch. He was like, what if we started just investing in businesses that are already profitable? Yeah. I can't remember the name. I'm gonna find the title and I'll get it to you. But he was like, think about that.
Makes sense.
What if you just invested a business that's already profitable, that if you came in and added a sprinkle of innovation, they could make, they grossed, 2 million last year. With your little sprinkle, they could gross 5. He was like, we're so obsessed with I was living in my garage. I was out in Cal. I mean, it's the same story, right? I had to figure I was coding all night. He's like, unfortunately, some of those founders have committed suicide because the business didn't work. They didn't get the funding, or they got the funding and couldn't produce. He's like, there's a lot of stress when you're starting something from scratch. And he was like, what if we just went out and bought businesses that are already doing it?
They have the structure. And
got the people. All you do is come in and say, I like this business. I see it's making money. And if I can bring a little bit of my expertise, I think we could be even better. Yeah. And that changed the way I thought about entrepreneurship.
Maybe I need to read the book, but I have a follow-up question on that.
Go ahead.
What would be the proper structure that, as you would see it, if you were to find a business opportunity right there that, like, okay, maybe they're making about $500K a year, but with my knowledge and expertise, if I was to add X amount of money, maybe $20K on the side, just for marketing, whatever the case may be, I can see them scaling into the 7 figures.
So part of the book was like, it's usually not going to be cutting edge type of stuff. So it's going to be old, tried and true types of business, like your mom and pop local. So we're here in Kansas City. So he's like, think about a business that's been around 30 years.
Trucking,
right? So they go through all these different types of. He's like, there's always gonna need logistical things, whether it's trucking, air. Like there's always freight. There's gonna be a need for that all the time. And he was like, what if that regional or local trucking company has major contracts with, I don't know, pick some entity. Walmart, right? So let's say it was Walmart, the government. Let's say they have like just legit business that you're like, if we just added a couple more partners, that would increase the revenue. He was like, that's what you want to look at. Businesses that will stay around, that will always be needed, that may not ever be phased out because of technology, but they exist right now. There are marketplaces that there are business owners looking to sell. And he was like, what if we just had this paradigm shift of, let's get our money up. Let's either pool our assets together, let's save a whole bunch, let's leverage our credit. Now we got to bring back in credit. Let's go buy businesses that are already profitable. He was like, I think people would love entrepreneurship a lot more if they knew from day one when they turned on the light, they were already cash flow positive. I had to say, so just how you're like, I was like, I never thought of that. Because everybody wants to be the unicorn. Oh, I lived in the garage, we got funding, it was a struggle, then we hired, then we just got lucky.
Yeah.
So maybe for the person kind of listening to this discussion, just figure out like, where do you want to make your mark? And after I read that book, and I swear I'm going to get you the title as soon as we finish this.
We'll probably have it somewhere in
here. Yeah, he was like, think about this. We've been going at it all wrong. It's not the sexier thing, right? Because it's like, well, this business it's a trucking business in the Midwest. But look what they making. Look at the P&L. Look at it. Look at the numbers. This looks good. Yes. And if we added a little bit of sauce, we could do 2, 3x just on some simple. Yeah, we gotta get to another new leadership. Maybe we clean house, but like it goes through like this whole process of like, but you're already making money from day one. Day one. There are still publicly traded tech companies that have not made a profit. It's weird to me that our system allows you to make billions and you're not profitable. Must be a great feeling. Must be a great feeling. I have not, I'm still in the red?
Yeah, for 10 years straight? I love it. But, okay, even though I have like a lot of discussions regarding business, let's take it back to what got us here together in this room, right? Urban Financial Coaching Services. You mentioned having the access to a mentor. I have access to a mentor through this organization, and Theodis Watson's my mentor, right?
Yep.
Tell me your chapter, a little bit about your chapter, what you're trying to get accomplished, how you plan to work together with other chapters in the country.
Yeah, so there was a young lady who spoke earlier, one of the past presidents, Demeeta Barbie, and I briefly told the story during the session, but I attended an Urban Financial Services Coalition event at the Federal Reserve Bank in San Francisco. And so I'm literally just getting some more food when I see Demeeta. She's like, "You're a nice looking young man, what do you do?" And I was like, "I'm a financial advisor." She's like, "Great. You need to meet the president," he was up on stage at the time. And so, just walked back in. I was like, "Excuse me, sir, Miss Barbie told me to come say hey to you." And I've been connected to the organization ever since. And it was learning about the history of how, the network didn't always exist. It's still, it's a struggle today for us still to kind of work together, but it was non-existent 30, 40 years ago from a financial services perspective. And so kind of understanding like, okay, I need to know people who look like me in this industry. So although I was a financial planner advisor, I'm like, but I need to know bankers and lenders and mortgage. I need to have the full suite of financial services professionals in my phone. Like I need to be able to call people like, "Hey, I need X," and X should be a text message or a phone call away. And that's what I started to build as the more I got engaged in the organization. And I started out as the education chair for San Francisco. And so my goal was, if you were elementary school, middle school, high school, college, church, social group, I was like, "Y'all do financial literacy?" And I talked a lot. I mean, I've probably done more than 200 community events, because I realized that certain communities don't get the information that I am privy to. And being in this organization, I'm an insider. And starting out I didn't think of like, I'm on the inside of like financial institutions. I know people in high places at other financial institutions. I was like, oh my God, I could help people if I shared a little bit of what I know. Yeah. But the struggle has always been and continues to be is some people just don't care. Like I think it's cool that we're in the Fed. I've been to so many Federal Reserve banks. Some people are like, "What's the Fed?" So like the fact that I've been at multiple coalition events across the country, I've hosted or I've been the moderator of different coalition events at the Fed. I'm like, how many of y'all have ever been inside the Fed?
It's a beautiful building.
They're all beautiful, all cool. And I'm like, there's a history, it's basic of you living in this country. There's certain things you should just know about. Not saying you got to be an expert, but I think it's cool. And I geek out when these economists talk, and I'm like, yeah, the economists can be a little dry. But I'm like, that's what makes this world go. It's those smart people that we get to engage with, that we can just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, do you know somebody who works here, who has research on this topic, who will be willing to host an educational event for this community?" It's just cool, man, that I know people who look like me who are in these spaces. Like that's always been kind of the connection for me. And even coming to the annual conference this year, I mean, yeah, it's great we're celebrating 50 years, but it's like, where do we go for the next 50? So that's kind of going to be my reason for being here, is also to kind of, work with Theodis and the national team on like, how do we, even though we're on the West Coast and things run and operate differently, how do we still have this like focused effort? Like we know the mission and the vision of the organization, but how do we continue to live it? And how do we make sure we get another 50 or another 150? So long after I'm gone, my name is going to be on one of these plaques or in the book. And they're like, "Man, this dude was the real deal."
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of these like heroes in our industry that these young cats don't know about. I just think it's cool to see these people talking about like real racism. Like they lived racism. Like we still deal with it, but they was like, nah, you can't come in here. And so now that we have some access, it's like, let's acknowledge our history and give a big thanks to these pioneers who it really was just them. There was no internet. They couldn't connect the way we can connect now. So I think being on the West Coast and knowing that there's this massive network across this entire country, like I salivate at like the people that I know I can connect for anything that I want to do. And all I do is when I have a project, I reach out and, hey, do you know anybody who does? Like, of course we do. That's the coolest thing in the world, to know that with a quick text message, I can be plugged in with anybody in the financial services industry.
That is true.
I'm not a big fish yet. Like I'm working on it. I'm trying to grow. But like the fact that you have access, and that's what I looked at living in the Bay Area, like these techies where they've worked at companies and they've met these people who were tech titans and they just kind of stayed in touch. So it was this own little network, like like all the people who worked at PayPal, the PayPal mafia. They were all buddies, and now all of them are billionaires. It's no secret. They just stayed together. So when you launch your company, how can I support you? I don't need to be the CEO. You got it covered. What role can I play? Do you need me on the ground? Do you need me to be behind that door? Do you just need some cash? Do you need a relationship? Like, what do you need? And watching how some of those people play out there, it's like we need to do the same thing as an organization. And occasionally I find people, and there's still like a small group of us who are like still like down for the cause in the Bay Area. And it's like, how do we get it back to where it used to be, where it was exciting to be a member? Are we providing a lot of value to our members all the time? And as you go through life, how are we helping you to grow? So as you have like I wasn't married, nor did I have a child when I joined. Young single guy, running the streets, having a great time. But now I'm married with a child, so now my focus is a lot different, but I still have these people who knew me when I was that kid. And I think that's cool that they've been able to see me kind of grow. And although I haven't physically seen a lot of them over the last probably 5 or 6 years, we have not missed a beat since I've been back. And I think that's cool to have this other family of people who are like, I got to make sure he makes it.
Yeah.
And whatever he does, like, we're going to support that because he's one of us. And you watch other organizations where the ones who are doing the most work usually get the most opportunities, but it's because they put in the time. So people always support what I do. And I'm going to need more of it as I continue to build and grow, but I want to grow with people who I like. I like y'all. I like UFSC people. Like, let's build something massive to where they're like, man, what did they do? Don't worry about it. Or if you want to get down, here's how we move. And it's not a hard sell to try to get people to want to volunteer. It's like, just do this work and watch what happens. Doors will open. You will get access. I think that's the coolest thing, and I want to keep that alive in the Bay Area. And again, I want to, with what capacity I do have, lending my time, talent, and some treasure to Theotis and the national team of like, here's where I can see myself continue to help this organization grow and flourish. And I think we've got some good days ahead of us if we make I got some ideas, I'll say. I got some ideas,
yeah.
And with a little bit of support, I think we can really make this thing pop.
And I think you being an entrepreneur could really come into play because you are certainly equipped with experience to be able to actually start, run, and execute on an idea, right? So I hope the ideas merge together, and I hope that one of the ideas and initiatives that Theotis has talked about is forming a digital chapter. Yeah, is the right word, right?
Yep. And we have technology to support all of that. Like, there are platforms. All we got to do is set it up.
Yes, set it up.
So everybody in there and say, hey, y'all, update. Boom, there it is. There's the network. I got my ideas ready for the strategic planning meeting Saturday morning.
I love it. It'll be exciting times to see.
Yeah.
It'll be exciting times to see what the organization would look like in the next 10, 15, maybe 50 years to come, right?
Yes,
hopefully,
sir.
Maybe certainly.
Yes, sir.
Any other things you'd like to put out
Good,
before?
man. I've enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure you're having some real fun with this whole thing,
man. This is amazing. This is amazing. It started as an idea 4 months in right now, and we're getting some traction. Yeah,
I love it because it was an idea. We thought about this idea years ago. I was like, you need to document all this history. And we've slowly been doing it because we were doing some stuff locally in San Francisco. I was like, we got all these retired execs who have worked at every major bank, what's their story? That story needs to be told
Yeah.
on video.
Yeah.
Those sound bites need to be archived. So when that kid, 50 years from now, I may not be here. 50? Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
No,
I got a chance.
Yes, that's what I say.
But they can pick that up and say, who is this person from? What? They
Yeah.
did that?
Yeah.
And I think that'll be the cool thing of knowing that, like, you're not alone. Like, we're going to see some of the same issues until we correct them. And some issues we may never be able to resolve, but maybe we can exist and flourish a lot more despite the obstacles and hurdles that we run into as, people of color in the financial services industry. And so I think these types of projects is like, this is the history. I'm going to be a part of that. And some kid, my daughter, might say, oh, there's daddy. Yep, I was talking like that years ago. Have not changed my tune, but I've watched success, I've seen wealth, and I like it. And so I'm like, I need to do what they're doing or some form of that. And I just got to find the right people to come along with me. Everybody's not going to come. I shouldn't have to convince you. You either are going to get on the bus or you're going to keep looking and we're going to pull off. And it's just that, it's easy. Make a decision. I know where I'm trying to go, but do you? And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't. They aren't aware of where, they aren't sure. They really do not know where they just kind of exist. I'm like, you got to have something and figure out what that something is and then find your village and go deep in the village, support the village, show up for your village, because when you need it, it'll also show up for you.
I love it.
We'll do it.
Thanks, Jasper.
Pleasure, brother, man.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.